Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the inaugural podcast for Aura Talks. If you followed us on Facebook, you would know that recently, several months ago, we hosted the book launch for the WA Secession, should I say, by WA. This book was released back in March, Michael?
I think so, mate.
Back in March?
Ago
Now, we're really interested in this idea because if you followed this at all, you would know that since 1933, in fact, in 1901, and Michael's, I'm going to introduce Michael in a second, but jump in if you need to. In 1901, the West Australia joined the Federation of Australia. In 1933, there was a full referendum to leave. It was passed by the people to leave the Commonwealth, effectively, to
leave
depart
the Federation, to get out.
To get out, yeah. But the powers to be took that to London, and next thing you know, the kibosh was put on it. That was a Labor government at the time.
Yeah, it was introduced by the Liberal government. Labor won power at that election, but to their credit, they carried the referendum, they took it to London, and it was never heard by the powers that be, who had, under the Constitution at the time, they had the power then to put in effect the decisions made by that referendum by the people. And it was supported by over 66% of the people at the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, it never happened. But the will of the West Australian public was very evident that they thought they had had a bad deal, and getting into the Federation was not in their interest. It took them 32 years to figure that out.
So the movement continues, and it's been continuing ever since. There's several groups that have formed over the last, well, I know recently it was a fairly large group that was formed, but they kind of ran out of steam. Anyway, with that, everyone, I'd like to introduce Michael Colotti. He is a member of the once...
I'm a West Australian citizen.
West Australian citizen, previously run for the... What was the name of the party?
The Australian Federation Party.
Australian Federation
and for the West Australia Party at two federal elections.
Yeah. So very active. You've been very active in the community.
Well, I'm a politically engaged person, I suppose. And this idea of secession, when it popped up again, it sort of piqued my interest. And the more I look at it, the more I find it to be compelling.
Me too. I think the reason why I support it is that, and I think the reason why most people are supporting One Nation now, I'm sick to death of the governance that we exist under. I think it's very unfair, number one, for the private individual. I think we've been getting deindustrialised for the last 30 years.
Oh, longer than that.
So, I'm being conservative. Something that I think we should talk about a little bit later on, but essentially there's, and especially since the COVID scamdemic pandemic era, and there was a lot of talk then about, look, we're sick of this, we should just break away and start our own governance. And there's been all kinds of, this is where the common law people come from, and the I don't know if they still exist, but the postmasters, all these people, essentially, in my mind, a little bit off kilter, but they're all looking for the same thing. And they were expressing very visually and verbally the fact that they didn't like the way things are, or they don't accept the way things are. Now, I think that there are a hell of a lot of people around that think that same way, but they're just not expressing it openly. And secession is the actual legal and lawful way to do that. The great authors, including Gillian Gillespie and G.G. Foster and others that produced this book, Dr. Coleman, Professor Coleman and others, what they've done here is they've given us a blueprint or a manifesto.
A manifesto or a blueprint or a thought piece. Call it what you like.
In how you might go about beginning this this change, starting this change?
The secession has been around in my lifetime since the 70s. And if I'm not mistaken, Lang Hancock was instrumental in pushing it at that time.
Yep.
But the concept is quite simple. Western Australia should be its own independent nation and no longer be having any conversation with Canberra whatsoever on an unequal basis. We should be our own nation, independent of all the other states of Australia, and not answering to Canberra anymore for anything. There's no reason for us to. And further to what you were saying there about the various people that are disaffected or dissatisfied with the current state of politics, I think there's very few people you could talk to who would actively say, I love the way this country's run.
Yeah, there would be a small minority.
I think it's fantastic what our government's doing. You know, unless you're of the handout class who relies on your entire lifestyle coming through Centrelink, then I don't think that you could be happy with the way our country's being run.
Yep.
Talking about deindustrialisation, that goes back to the Lima Agreement, which was Gough Whitlam's signed off on that one, which is basically made a decision that Australia would be a quarry and that we would ship all of our raw materials all the way around the world and then we would buy it back. And that's what you've seen in this country in my lifetime, is this deindustrialisation. And look, maybe that was a great idea of its time, but we saw very quickly during COVID when economies closed off to one another and how if you wanted to order a car, you were going to wait 2 years because the chip manufacturers shut down and we don't make them in this country anymore.
Yeah. And it cost you $2,000 for this little tiny thing.
Apparently, most of the medicines that we have in this country aren't made here anymore. And you could go on and on and on and on. So yes, we are a first world nation without the capacity to create and manufacture most of what that means.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in my mind, the reason for the Lima Agreement was all the very first steps or early steps in this unionisation.
Globalisation.
Bingo.
And that's what the concept.
And this is where the European Economic Union comes from. Yeah. We here in Australia were going to be a part of the Oceanic Economic Union, which included China. And China was designated as the manufacturing hub. Mm-hmm. We were going to be the raw materials hub.
Yeah.
And that's what we were going to be specialising in, all of Australia. Mm-hmm. And, of course, the globalists didn't get their way. And so now...
Well, they have to a large degree.
Well, they more than a large degree. Yeah. I mean, this is what Agenda 2030 is all about, and everyone's talking about that right now, 15-minute cities and all that garbage. We just simply... we don't want that. We don't need that. And we want to take care of ourselves. I want these people, including the federal government, to get the heck out of my life.
Yeah, totally. Government shouldn't be in people's lives. Government should be there to do a handful of things, and they should do them well. National defence.
Yep.
Law and order. Health. Education. And the fifth one escapes me. Shouldn't escape me. It's the most important one. Regulation of corporations.
Yeah.
If the government's doing those 5 things and it stays out of people's lives, I think life will be fine. And people will get on with running their lives and their pursuit of happiness and joy and all of the things that people get out of bed to do every day.
Yeah.
And government should do those things, those 5 things. That's it.
And get the heck out of our life.
Get the heck out of people's lives.
Instead, we've got the Albanese government who are just pillaging the country. And actually, let me grab my phone here for a second because I saw a really interesting comment on YouTube the other day, which I totally and utterly agreed with. It was something that I'd commented on, but there was the comment below mine was really interesting, I thought. And I thought it was totally and utterly true. When our PM first entered politics, he had the nickname Little Trotsky. I believe that's true. He was known as a communist back then. But the Australian Labor Party and now the Australian Communist Party, Australia has a communist government pretending to be capitalist. That, I think, is very close to the truth. Because they are dictating how we should live in every way. They're dictating everything to us, accepting no responsibility for any action whatsoever.
They never take responsibility for any of the poor decisions they're making.
They're now talking about taking over or utilising our superannuation.
Well, it's a big pile of money. Why wouldn't they?
Exactly. So essentially, they're stealing the treasure of the country.
Yeah, it's all they've ever done.
Meanwhile,
it's all socialism ever does.
Exactly.
It never ever produces anything. It just looks at where there is money to take, and it takes it. At some point, it runs out.
And the people get poorer and poorer. And what's happening now, we have, I saw reports recently that the number of, defaults on mortgages is going through the roof right now. Little wonder. It's little wonder.
Look, people are struggling in this country. There's no
two ways about it.
There's no two ways about that. And these people think that the way to solve that is to take more tax or find more money from wherever they can and give more handouts to people.
Yep. So don't want to turn this into a One Nation discussion, but it's little wonder that One Nation is taking off.
One Nation is a protest vote.
Is it though? To me, it's not.
I think it is.
To me, it's not.
There are the people that look at the elections that I ran against One Nation candidates, and every election that I've had any interest in, One Nation polls 4 or 5% of the vote. The fact today
not anymore.
Well, no, but and good on them. Look, I'm not knocking One Nation, but you have to appreciate what a vote for One Nation is today. It's a belief by people that have finally had enough. They've finally given up on the two major parties, and they're willing to let anybody have a go. Or they're sending a protest. Yeah. Don't forget these are by-elections, okay? So in a by-election...
Currently,
sure.
Yeah.
In the South Australian result, ultimately, where did that leave One Nation? It didn't leave them governing.
No.
And it didn't leave them with a balance of power. And so
no, but it's a building. They're building.
Yeah, they're building.
We're building.
Look, mate, don't get me wrong.
Well,
I'm not knocking One Nation.
Yeah.
I have nothing but respect for Pauline Hanson. I have nothing but respect for what they're doing. But let's be real. Okay, we're 2 years out from a federal election in 2028. Pauline Hanson has not put a hand up for a lower house seat. To be the Prime Minister, she needs to be sitting in a lower house seat.
Yep.
Where are the candidates? Where is a real credible portfolio of candidates that's going to stand in all of those seats?
You're coming back to the mainstream media talking points.
No, well, that's the truth. It's the truth.
Okay.
And look, whether it comes, I don't shy away from anything as long as it's the truth. But that is the truth. I would love to think that One Nation has some person in the background that's going to stand up, and I've heard of one individual.
Yeah.
It would be amazing if he stuck his hand up and had a
There's quite a few actually.
Yeah. It would be amazing. And maybe that's their game plan. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe I just don't see it. I would love to see it.
Well, I mean, you mentioned...
But I don't see it from here.
Yeah, well, mate, we've got 2 years to go. But Fantastic. You mentioned candidates. They've got people coming out of the woodwork that they're working hard to vet. They've got some really great people. I mean, look at Philip Scott here in WA. Yeah. Fantastic guy. Really is one of the people that has all of the concerns. Now, I first met him when the protests were going on about the digital ID. He impressed me a huge amount. And in fact, for anyone that's listening that's interested, we're going to be doing something with him very shortly. But I've also met Pauline twice, and I've had private discussions with her. I've had that. I'm just fortunate to do that. And the thing that out of all the different politicians that I've met over the years, now since the scamdemic, when I started doing, independent journalism in a sense, she really deeply cares about the country, and she really wants the country to be back to where it was. Now, I was born in the 70s, so the 80s was when I was really starting to form, a worldview, I guess you'd say. I think back to those times a lot when I was a kid, and just the things that I experienced in those days and just how free we were. It was
mate,
incredible.
I grew up at the same time, so
I want that back.
I very much remember the country we had.
Yeah.
But I don't see her path to prime ministership from where we are today.
Yeah, I guess that's.
And again, mate, prove me wrong. Look, if we had an election today, I'd be voting for her. I'd be voting for the party. But my current focus right now is that Pauline Hanson can be the Prime Minister of Australia, but Western Australia is not going to be part of it.
Yeah, no, and that's where we're getting off track. So
it's not off track. It's a conversation about the current political climate.
It is relevant because I think, again, you say it's a protest vote. I'm sure you're right to a degree. In fact, I do agree with you in a sense. But I think it's more than that. I think it's more that we want our country back. I want to see our country. You're talking about Western Australia, coming back to Western Australia. I mean, we have every raw mineral you could ever want.
Oh, totally.
We have massive industries built around this. Currently, there's a global shortage of solid state memory, RAM, and those things, if anyone knows what that is. We could have a company here that's one of the established companies come out here and start making RAM chips here.
Well, that's one of the things that's in the book that they discuss about the future economy of a future nation of Western Australia. And that is one of them. That is where the future lies. Elon Musk has just announced his Terafab, which will be the largest building in the world by all accounts.
What's that about? I haven't heard about it.
It's chips.
Oh, yeah.
He wants to take back the capacity of in the US to build the next generation of microchips.
Yeah.
And currently the world leader is TSMC, and then you have the machines that they use are from the Netherlands, and there's a bottleneck.
Yep.
And Musk's, never you'd be a fool to bet against Elon Musk, but he's decided that that's where he wants to go, because the bottleneck for his next businesses, whether it's robots or cars or
data centers,
which he wants to build in outer space, the bottleneck is chips.
Yeah.
So he's decided, I'm going to start building my own.
Yeah. I think the outer space thing, or satellites revolving around the Earth, is the right place for data centers because they need to be kept cool, and it's very cold out there.
Like I say, don't bet against Elon Musk. That's why he's putting them in space.
Yeah. The Chinese are apparently doing that as well. Anyway, let's move on to the subject of secession. I've got a few questions here that weren't written by me. They were written by another party.
Let me have a crack.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a crack at these because they're very general.
Okay.
But they're kind of relevant, except for one of them. You and I off camera had a quick chat about it.
I'll try not to ramble.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I'll try to read it correctly.
Yeah.
Now, this is very generally speaking, and I guess it establishes how and why this could be a thing that could happen.
Yeah.
First one is the preamble to the Commonwealth Constitution describes the Federation as an insoluble federal commonwealth. But what is the legal weight, if any, does this carry?
Well, if any is the valid word there. There isn't any weight to a preamble, and the High Court's ruled on that in previous cases already. So anybody that says that the word indissoluble sitting in the preamble to the Constitution has some legal weight is just wrong. It doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't. It doesn't prevent Western Australia from holding the referendum.
Right. Glad we established that.
Yeah.
If the preamble is non-binding, do any of the operative clauses of the Commonwealth Constitution, which do have legal force, expressly permit or prohibit secession?
No, they don't. And I forget which clause it is. It caught me on the hop. But one of the clauses specifically states, for the time being. Now, those words imply that this is not permanent, it's not forever, no contract is forever, and you can look around the world in the last generation and see multiple economic and political unions have dissolved. USSR was once one nation. It's no longer one nation. The confederation of those nations broke apart and now is a bunch of independent nations.
Okay.
You could say the same about Yugoslavia. You could say the same about Britain deciding that no longer wanted to be part of the EU. You know, there's nothing unusual whatsoever in nations leaving federations or states deciding that they want to be their own nations. You know, this has happened multiple
You used
times
the
throughout the
analogy,
world.
I think, earlier before we started recording.
Yeah.
You used the analogy of divorce.
Of a divorce.
Yeah.
I mean, no contract is forever.
Yeah.
And if you're a battered spouse, at some point you wake up one day and go, I've had enough of this. I'm not being listened to. I'm not being respected.
Even though you said the words "till death do us part."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a pretty permanent union.
Got it.
And people walk away from them every single day.
Okay. The next one, I'm just going to. I know there was one here that's not real. It doesn't. We couldn't understand it anyway. Us simpletons couldn't understand it. Let me see if this is the one.
These have been written by a lawyer too, I believe.
They have been, and they've been written in such a way that it's like they're good questions to have answered up front. And we're just having a crack at it at the moment because for anyone who's watching, the whole point to Aura Talks, meaning are you really aware? The whole point to that is it's like an event company, you know, kind of mimicking TED Talks in a sense, except that we're more political. And the idea is to actually host events where we have really interesting speakers and people can come along and listen to those speakers for a pretty cheap price and meet them and ask their own questions. So we're using this as really...
it's an introduction.
It's an introduction to what we're doing, as well as we're talking about, you know, things in an exploratory manner. We're starting to air out what the questions might be, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, these are fair questions.
Yeah, okay. Let me read another one to you then. In the absence of any express permission or prohibition, should we view the words in the Commonwealth Constitution as for the time being are parts of the Commonwealth? That's a quote from it. As implying a secession option. So should we view that quote?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, you got to accept that when they write a constitution, it's a very important document. It's a founding document of an entire nation. Those words are not there by accident.
Yeah.
You know, for the time being absolutely implies for the time being.
Yeah. And the time being is up.
The time being was up in 1933.
Indeed. Okay, let's try another one then. If the Commonwealth Constitution provides only an implied right, do the WA Constitution, or should I say, does the WA Constitution and the Australia Act supply the necessary power? Now, this is one I think that we agreed we probably can't answer,
Well,
right
I
now?
don't think I can answer that without actually taking a look at both of those documents. But I think what he's getting at there is that the Western Australian Constitution and the plenary powers that it establishes for the Western Australian government absolutely give the West Australian government the capacity to hold a referendum on any question it sees fit. And
Mm,
it did that in 1933. It asked the West Australian people whether or not they wanted to secede from the Federation. And they said yes.
right.
And then the next step in that process, under the Australian Constitution at the time, as I understand it, was that this had to be ratified by Westminster, the British government. And it refused. Well, it refused on the basis that because we were now part of a federation, the West Australian government no longer had standing to even ask the question. That's
Right.
my understanding. The question could only come from the Australian government, and naturally they didn't want to ask it.
Yeah.
So it's quite a technical thing that happened, but ultimately what it meant was the West Australian people voted 66% to get out of the Federation, and the Australian government blocked it.
Mm,
The Australian government can no longer do that. The federal constitution or the Australian constitution was amended, so there is no longer any avenue to go to Westminster. So it's an open question as to how it could be blocked. Ultimately, it perhaps would go to the High Court. How, I don't know, to be honest. But if we held the referendum today and Western Australian people voted to get out of the Federation, well, I don't know what the next steps are. But it's a pretty clear indication that we no longer want to be part of your federation.
yeah.
And your document says for the time being, well, we've said time's up.
Yeah. Anyway, so that point, to your point, that's the whole reason why we're doing this podcast and why we're going to do more events on it. We've got some really interesting events planned, and we're going to attempt to answer all these questions.
Absolutely. Like I say, it's a very compelling idea.
Yeah.
Once it's a 400-page book. You need to read it. You need to digest it. And bring your questions. I mean, that's what we're here to do.
Hey, and by the way, on that point, for anyone who's watching, again, I will link the website to this information down below so that you can buy the book. And there's a few different options. You
Mate,
don't
the
have
book's
to.
free now.
The electronic version
electronic
of it
version
is free.
They've actually rewritten Chapter 2
Oh,
to
okay.
make the legal position clearer.
Oh, okay.
Because this seems to be the predominant question people have is, can we do it?
Right.
And it's pretty clear we can.
Yeah, okay. That's that one. By the way, mate, just as a side note, can you just try and pull your microphone a little bit closer? I noticed that your levels are a little bit low.
Where do you want me to go?
Just drag the mic closer to your
Over
face.
there?
Yeah, and tilt it up. Yeah.
Tilt it up?
There you
Like
go. No, the actual mic, just
Oh, the
gently. Just, yeah. Beautiful. Okay. Looks
Happy out
good.
there?
Yeah, your levels are already coming up quite nicely. Okay, let's try another one of these questions.
I love all these questions without notice.
Well, you did get a little bit of notice, let's be fair. Only a little bit.
I
But
didn't get time to study. It's a bit of legal, technical questions.
again, mate, this is the beginning of a process.
No, it's all good.
And we'll talk, after this question, we'll talk about another idea we've got. The High Court has affirmed that the Constitution derives its legitimacy from the will of the people.
Yep.
Does the principle of popular sovereignty provide an independent legal foundation for secession?
Mate, I'm going to have to say I don't know because I don't fully understand what he means there with that question.
Well,
But I think, it kind of answers itself.
Well, I think what it means is that if the Constitution derives its legitimacy from the will of the people, then it's the will of the people.
Exactly, that's what I mean. It answers itself.
It does.
We've already established that the will of the people determines
Indeed
what the laws should be, and that's a democratic principle all the way through. So
it is. You know what? Just on that note, this is something that I really wish everybody in the country would learn to understand. It's the people who are the power.
Totally.
And yet everybody is so apathetic. It actually drives me nuts. I mean,
But I think that's a whole other podcast, Andrew. I
it
think
is.
we
It is.
we live in a time, like I say, I consider myself politically engaged. You're a politically engaged person. You don't meet. I think the pandemic, scamdemic, as you call it,
Plandemic.
pandemic.
Yep.
It woke a lot of people up to
It sure
the
did.
importance of being involved in politics. They woke up finding out that a whole pile of people had been given power over their lives who should never have had it.
Yeah.
And they've been angry ever since, and we're still living with the consequences of that.
Mm.
And it has altered a lot of people's, opened a lot of people up to be engaged in politics more than they have.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, and there's so many things we could talk about. This just opens up a world of conversation. I just want to say to, and not that they'll see this podcast, but all the politicians that were in power or had some role in that scamdemic era, I just want them to understand that they did this. They made One Nation.
Totally.
They totally and utterly did.
Totally.
Okay, let's try another question. I think this is the one that we can't answer. I'm nearly certain it is. It would be fair to anticipate. I'm going to start that again because I thought I was reading the wrong question. It would be fair to anticipate a High Court challenge to secession by WA. What approach would the High Court likely take? Now, we're no experts in this stuff. I don't know.
It's an open-ended question. I don't know. But it's correct in saying that there would be a challenge to it.
100%.
The other states of Australia or Canberra is not going to just let go of the riches of Western Australia.
Yeah.
They will fight it tooth and nail. But the question becomes what are you going to do if the Western Australians vote 66% again to get out of your federation and stop being told what to do by you?
Yeah. I'm hearing you. I'm absolutely hearing you.
So, yeah, I don't know if we answered the question because I don't know on what basis they could. I think we saw that during the scamdemic, pandemic, when Mark McGowan decided that the West Australian border was a hard border.
Yeah.
And he closed it. And the High Court ruled that he had the right to do that. So there's multiple precedents that establish that Western Australia is its its own legal entity.
Yeah. I guess there's another thing we want to talk about because this podcast is all about initiatives, right?
Uh-huh.
We've mentioned that we want to answer these questions clearly, and we also.
Well, I think all of those questions go to, as I say, the authors have rewritten section 2 of the book, which is about the legal question whether or not West Australia can leave. Yep. And the authors have been pretty clear. In their opinion, there's absolutely no impediment. If the people vote for it, it's not necessarily a done deal, but you start a process that leads to West Australia becoming its own independent nation and cutting all ties with Canberra, as far as Canberra having any kind of legislative power over what happens to West Australia. It's going to happen if people vote for it this time.
Yeah, I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
I certainly hope so. So the only way that's going to work, right, is by building a movement for it.
Sure.
I mean, there is an existing movement, so it's a sort of ready-made market in a sense, but there needs to be a much greater movement, and people need to understand the whats and the whys and the hows, which is what we're attempting to do. And we've already mentioned that the whole reason for Aura Talks is it's actually an event company.
Mm-hmm.
That we're going to start doing many more podcasts and putting that out separately as a podcast. And this is the first one. We've got some really interesting people lined up to come on as well, by the way. But the other thing is we had this idea, and I'm really interested to know what people think in the comments, is we talked about doing a weekly Zoom meeting or a webinar, essentially, where the people who will come to be on the event nights, where we've got this
Ask all
whole,
difficult questions.
they'll be able to answer the difficult questions.
Oh, that would be good, both of them.
And they'll be subject matter experts, right? So they'll be able to get right into the nitty gritty. And then when it comes to question time, by the way, everyone, as a side note, the whole modus operandi behind these events is to allow you the opportunity to ask your questions. It's all about public engagement. But we thought, what else could we be doing? And how would we build this movement? And I think one of those is to do webinars.
Yeah,
a
totally.
weekly webinar
Well, I think
with an agenda.
Well, I think people hear this term secession, and a lot of people have their own preconceived ideas of what that means. I mean, when the guys launched the book, and Gigi launched the book, the question was put to Roger Cook, and he laughed it off. Okay, good on you.
Yeah, he said, I won't read the book. Of course I won't, but I'll watch the video. I'll wait for the video.
Oh, the videos are coming out any day now. But, good luck to him, because he is supposed to be the leader of this state.
And how many advisors and, researchers and I don't even know how many he's got, but I'm sure it's quite a few.
Yeah, and who knows how many consultants are on the payroll.
Yeah, exactly.
The bottom line
but he hasn't
is
got the capacity to do that.
His role is to be the number one cheerleader for Western Australia. Yeah. And yet he's currently begging Canberra not to take away our GST. So, I don't know where Roger Cook stands in his oath of whatever oath he took to the office to support the interests of Western Australia. Yeah. And why he sees some fealty to the people in Canberra. But I guess in 2029, when the political parties are formed and the policies have been put out there to the public and the people go to the polling booths in 2029, I guess we'll be able to explain to Roger Cook whether or not it was funny or not, or whether or not he got to watch the video. Yeah. Because the question is going to be asked. Yeah. And people are going to be informed before that day in 2029, and people are going to be asked, when this is fully understood by you, can you see why you would not vote for this? Why would you not vote for more autonomy? Why would you not vote for better government? Why would you not vote for an economy that actually functions and rewards people for their effort, instead of stripping every bit of ambition out of people, which is what the current federal government is doing? This is what secession offers us. And it's a long road to that election day in 2029, but that's what people like myself and others that will be speaking more and more publicly about this are going to be articulating. Yep. Secession and what it offers you as a citizen of Western Australia is compelling. And I have yet to see a single thing in what the people who have written this book have said, or the ideas that they've floated for people to think about, that would make you pause and go, oh no, I like the deal we've got with Canberra. Because there's nothing good about the deal we have. There's nothing good,
but I mean, let's be honest. Again, the reason for the rise of One Nation is these people like Roger Cook clearly do not represent our best interests.
No, they don't.
I mean, I challenge anyone to name a thing that they've ever done. Let's just take Roger Cook in his political career. Yeah. Has he ever done anything that's benefited this state? Has he done anything? And by the way, he sure has told some whopping lies. And, again, go back to the pandemic, because this is the root cause of why everyone's talking like we are right now. Yeah. He literally said in a Channel 7 interview, and I've got the printout of it somewhere in my stack of many, many notes, that it was an experiment. And now we're seeing the Anthony Fauci, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the one who is responsible for the entire response in the Western world, the one who the TGA here in Australia followed and hung on every word that creep said. Literally in the words of one of the senators in America, Ron Johnson, he calls Anthony Fauci a monster, which he is. It's all well and truly known now that they knew exactly what was going to happen to pregnant women, and there are many more things here, many more reasons for why I don't trust GPs anymore. I have a real problem with the medical fraternity. Don't get me wrong. If I break a leg and I go into emergency, I know that they'll do the right thing and they'll be great. But just going to your GP, I mean, I just felt betrayed. So with all of that being said, you could go on all day citing the reasons for why we don't trust anyone in mainstream politics these days. The people do not trust them.
Well, I mean, look, it was very apparent to me during that time that was going to be the broad outcome. That you were seeing faith in institutions that we had broadly perceived to be operating in our interests for most of our lives. You and I are similar age. We understood that governments weren't perfect, but we kind of had this belief that they were generally on our side, and if they got things wrong, well, okay, they got things wrong. They're not perfect. They're human, and all the rest of it. Yeah. To me, and I remember saying this to Peter Harris at the time, this is the moment they stepped out from behind the curtain.
It is.
And showed us what they really are.
That's exactly what it was.
This is what they really are. They're not there for you and me. They never have been. But they managed to convince us that they were, and that all of what wasn't right was just...
And they get upset.
Poor and not very well run. But no, it is very well run.
They wish they could have done it differently.
It is corporate.
Yeah.
And this is why I say, if you want to have a smaller government, there are fundamental things that government should do, and it should stay out of everything else. But the number one and most important thing it must do is regulate corporations.
Yep.
And today that is not the case. What governments are doing is regulating citizens.
Yep.
And imposing the will of corporations on citizens.
Yep.
And all of what you speak about with Fauci and all the rest of it is a symptom of that, because all of those people were rewarded by corporations to further an agenda that made them money.
Yep.
And people have all kinds of conceptions, and I could be wrong, but that's the way I read it. All of the ills in our society come back to the good book. And I'm by no means a religious person. I'm a cultural Christian, if you like. But within the good book of Christianity, it tells us the root of all evil is the love of money. Or love of money is the root of all evil. And from that, you can look at around the world today and look at how governments operate, how lobbyists operate, how most of your parties operate. They are all there to do the bidding of corporations. And that's where we've gone wrong.
And what a great segue. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I wanted to quickly mention the census that's just went on, that we just had, a couple of days ago.
I'm still waiting for my paper form.
Well, in this thing, they're telling you that there's a big fine, but no one had anything addressed to them. So where they get their legal standing for a fine...
Well, they don't, and we can debate that all day. But,
yeah, we could go on and about that. This thing with Christianity, this thing that they did, where they listed all the denominations of it, but there was no actual Christian or Christianity. I think that was one of the most evil acts undertaken by this government.
That's a strong word. Why do you consider it evil?
Because, like the pandemic,
Yeah.
It was another attack on humanity and society. And it was actually an attack on the country of Australia. And this is the reason why. Christianity is far more than just a theology.
Mm-hmm.
It is the understanding between people. Now, there are a lot of people around from many different backgrounds and all that sort of thing. But the reason people value living in Australia and why so many, I believe, why so many people want to be in Australia is that we're a society based on basically two principles: the one of civil rights and the one of just general fairness. There is built into our value system is the value to be fair with each other and to have civil rights, right? Now, that is the literal fabric of our society. Everyone loves to use this term, fabric of society, but what is that? It is Christianity here in Australia and many other countries. So our dodgy federal government, the communistic federal government, who loves to bring in ISIS, they're literally talking about bringing in ISIS fighters, 6,000 people from Gaza. We're getting people literally coming out of grass huts in Sudan, and they're landing them all in here in our societies, our Christian societies, where fairness, as I said, and civil rights is a thing that we value. These people have got no concept of that whatsoever, and there's all kinds of problems arising from that. Things like the Bondi massacre and many other things, just disruptions everywhere. And so they're doing that, but then they go and make us choose whether we're a Greek Orthodox or a whatever, instead of just saying you're Christian. And so it was a very sly, sneaky attack on our society. That's my take on it.
I hear what you say, and I've heard a number of people say that. I don't know where that ultimately leads, because whatever comes out of that census...
Well, it just proves a reason for secession.
Yeah, well, maybe, but what I'm getting at is like, I haven't seen the census. Like I said, I'm waiting for my paper form. 2 points. One, whatever comes out of that religious question will be percentages who ticked what boxes. And then in the other box, people have
they'll treat
Christian
it separately.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
They may treat it separately, but ultimately you'll be able to see it. It'll be transparent.
Yeah.
Greek Orthodox, Church of England, Catholic. You can add them up and call it all Christian.
Yeah, and then they went into this whole sexuality thing as well. Which
the sexuality thing, again, but I think something we discussed earlier is like, I've filled out census throughout my life and never thought about it. Everybody did it.
Yeah.
And suddenly this one becomes problematic or has caused a lot of people a lot of angst.
Because we're all exhausted.
Well, that's one take on it. I think it goes back to what I was saying before about what happened during the pandemic, is that all of our illusions about the institutions that we thought were on our side have been shattered.
Yep.
And so now every time the government asks a question, we want to know what's the agenda behind the question.
Yeah.
And that's why people are looking at this census and going, I don't trust this anymore.
No.
What are you really trying to do?
What are you really up to here?
And this is what people are asking about, how many spare bedrooms are in their house.
Yep.
You know, there's people out there like, what are you doing? You can have an empty bedroom tax. And you have Anthony Albanese going, we're not going to touch NG and we're not going to touch CGT. And what do?
Bingo.
So nobody trusts them anymore, and with good reason.
That's right, because they're liars.
They lie constantly.
Yep.
They lie and lie and lie. And so everyone is exhausted with the lying and trying to figure out what's really going on. And so, yeah, you end up with a population that looks at these people that you are meant to have some degree of respect for, who stand up there and apparently think they're deserving of respect. And nobody does respect them. We know they're lying to us.
Mate, it's so... I mean, we could go on and on and on.
So,
yeah,
back to secession.
Yep.
Reset it all.
Exactly.
Reset it all.
Exactly.
Bye-bye, Canberra. We no longer have to even think about you.
We're
And
done
at the
with
same time, we're going to elect a state government based upon the principles of that book and the policies that will be developed between now and the 2029 election, that the candidates that support secession will also be talking to you about how this state or this country goes forward, the country of Western Australia goes forward, what it means, how it will operate, and how it will serve your interests as a citizen of that state.
Yeah. Yeah, look, just on all of these things, I've got to say it, it's not anything to do with secession, but I'm sick to death of having everybody else's sexuality jammed down my throat. I am sick to death of it.
Yeah.
It's actually offensive. Anyway, let's just wrap this up with a couple of points that I'd like you to sort of answer for me. Two things. The first one is, I've seen a lot of people's comments about it, just comments to the video that we put out after the book launch. Oh, great. So this means now that I've got to have a passport to go to New South Wales? Doesn't necessarily mean that.
If you travel from Germany to France, you don't need a passport. It's one zone.
It's one zone.
Whatever.
Correct.
Yes, you will have a Western Australian passport because we'll be a nation.
Yeah.
You don't need a passport to go between New Zealand and Australia.
Exactly.
Whatever rules that need to be in place to govern that is up for the question.
Yeah, exactly. What about money?
Well, this is a conversation I think Gav Meister, who we both know, wanted to have a
retired
debate about
economist that we're going to have on
the
show.
book says that we're going to have our own complete new currency. Other people say that's a bad idea. I'd love to see the debate. I'd love to see the pros and the cons.
And that's it. And it's the debate, right?
Yeah.
And this is what we're after. This is what we're trying to foment. Is the debate.
It's certainly not for you and I to figure that out today.
Exactly. Yeah. But, full disclosure, that's what I'm after here. It's what I'm interested in is the debate, the discussion, the learning from it, finding out what everybody really wants. So which leads to the last part of the question. How would this process, let's say that we voted for it and we're going to do it. A lot of people want to know, how would that be done? What would the process be? And in the book, there's this topic of Core West. In other words, a panel or a company or whatever that's put together, and we'll get into how in a second, but its job is to undertake the process of the change, to undertake the secession. Do you want to talk to that a little bit? And how would, in your mind, would Core West be formed and who would be in it? Because there is a coverage in the book.
Damn good question. But, we've all heard this term think tank before. Okay, and I think if you imagine Core West as a think tank made up of people that are pro-secession, who are charged with the idea, and we brought up currency. Let's understand what that means. What does it mean to have our own currency completely independent of the Australian dollar? And what does it mean for us to say, well, no, we'll stick with the Australian dollar? Like the Europeans all have the euro. Different countries all share the euro. Yeah. It can be done either way.
Anything can be done.
Anything can be done.
Yeah.
The process that Core West should be doing is it should not be saying that one is better than the other. It should be honestly putting out there the two perspectives so that when people go to an election, there might be two parties in any electorate that are both pro-secession, or an independent and a party that are both pro-secession, generally speaking, but one may be pro having our own currency and one might be, no, we'll retain the Australian dollar.
Yeah, and look, this is my take on it, right? Yeah. Let's say we voted for it and we're going to do it, and Core West or whatever it happens to be called is formed. I would suspect that number one, there'd be a timeline for completion.
Yeah.
And I would sort of think just roughly about 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But in that time, there's all these key questions that are going to be formed. And again, part of the process for what we're trying to do here is to form what would those questions be. And there would be a series of referendums on that.
Perhaps.
I mean, everyone would get to vote. I would hope. I
don't know that people really want to vote on everything.
No, it wouldn't be. It'd be just the high level stuff.
The high level stuff.
But I personally don't want some Johnny-come-lately new politician that's just going to be the same old politician from before.
No,
I don't want that to happen. I want us as a group of people to have the opportunity to vote on and to participate in the formation of this new potential new country.
I think for me, I want people to get past the idea that it's possible. It's totally possible. Since the time I sort of went to the launch, read the book, and having the experiences I've had over the last 8 years or so, all lead me to say this with absolute conviction. This secession by Western Australia is a revolution without a shot being fired.
Yep.
It establishes a completely new country, which the people that live here get to decide how it's going to be and what their relationship is going to be with the government of that country. That will be a completely new government. You can wave goodbye to this horrible Labor Party, a dead Liberal Party, and be voting for government that is truly going to represent you, the citizen. Now, if that's what you can conceive of in your mind, then get on board and be involved in what that really looks like, so that in 2029, when you walk into a polling booth, you're going to be able to vote for exactly what you want. Most of us have lived our lives going into polling booths going, which one of these nuts isn't worth our time? It's the best. It's the better of two poor options. You're not really voting for any real change. You're not really voting for anybody that has any vision about how your country's going to be run. You're not voting for anything of any consequence.
That's right. It's all just getting served up to us.
You get told what the agenda is, and the last federal election was about whether or not you're going to get a discount on your HEX or a discount on your fuel.
Yeah, right? and that's the thing. They always appeal to our kind of lack of sensibility, if that makes sense.
Well, they're not stupid. They figure out where the most votes are that will swing things in their direction.
Yeah.
And they focus on that.
Yeah.
And I think the broader population, the people that are trying to figure out whether or not they're going to be able to afford to buy a home, or whether they're going to be able to afford to raise their family, or whether if their car breaks down, they're going to be able to afford to buy another one, or they're looking at what kind of jobs their kids might have in 20 years' time, or whether or not we're ever going to build another vehicle in this country again, are all like, where's that coming from?
Yeah, well...
Because all I'm getting to vote for is a discount on my HEX or 25 cents off the fuel.
Yeah, it means
nobody's
nothing
offering
really.
me a vision for a nation here.
Correct, and that is the point, right? It's this never asking us what kind of nation we want. It's always come from... I always get this sense that it comes from this position of we're the government and we're going to make the decisions, but here's this petty little thing that you, the peasant, might be interested in, because you don't get to know about anything else. You're not trusted enough, or you don't know enough, or whatever excuse. They literally talk to us like we're children most of the time.
Well, it's worse.
So does the mainstream media.
Oh, totally.
And
we saw the federal government offer the mainstream media, what was it, $67 or $167 million recently. I mean, what is that?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
It's like if you play the game and you put the messages out there we'll make sure that you can keep running your business. It's a business that's dying, that nobody trusts anymore, nobody wants to watch anymore, that now is relying on government handouts that will only put out a message that the government likes.
Yeah.
It's the complete antithesis of what the Fourth Estate is meant to be about. It's meant to be challenging everything that government does. It's meant to be holding that power to account. You know, we had a situation a few months ago where the Treasurer and the Prime Minister directly contradicted statements they made prior to the elections, where Dave Hughes has been ranting about.
Yeah.
It's like, we would have been fine. Like when John Howard said, we're going to have a GST if you elect this government. Well, they elected that government. Whether you liked the GST or not, it was taken to an election and you have to live with it. We had the complete opposite. You had Albo and Chambers saying, we're not touching CGT, we're not touching NG.
And they did
And then they did it.
Yeah.
It's a lie. It's egregious.
They're liars and they're untrustworthy, and we need to get rid of them. Okay, so, mate, with all of that being said, we've had a real good rant.
Yeah, I love a rant.
Love a good rant. I could go on all day, and it's probably not a healthy thing to do.
Yeah.
But let's just recap really quickly.
Yeah.
So the audience knows we're really interested in getting your feedback on what we've talked about today. That would be great. In the comments below, that'd be fantastic. Are you interested in coming to events with subject matter experts to talk about these issues? Are you interested in following the podcast as well? Are you interested in a regular webinar? To me, I'm really interested in doing that. I think I mentioned to you that only once I attended, and I should have done it many more times, but I attended this thing called the foam meeting. Now, I can't remember what that stands for, but it was all about the citizens, like presenting things that are going on in the world, talking about the issues of the day, etc. Where they have a proper set agenda, and this is what we want to do. Have an agenda. We will talk about things like secession, but talk about everything else as well, because part of the whole process of secession is to gauge where everybody's at and starting to learn and understand and build a data profile or a data profile of what it is people really want, so that we might be able to make changes. But just also, like, there's a lot of people out there that just want to talk about things or hear from other people who are like them, because I think a lot of people think that they're isolated. People like you and I, it's a little bit different. We went right into that whole thing because of the pandemic, part of a great big network of people that we all talk together all the time. So we want to provide that for everybody else. So a weekly webinar where there's a set agenda, different people. If you want to be somebody who does a report, you can be in the agenda, and we present that for maybe an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, and then open the floor up to everybody to have a chat, and then eventually close the meeting down. But we can leave it so that people can continue to talk as long as they like. That's roughly how they did it in this foam meeting, this thing that's out of Melbourne, produced by a guy by the name of Charles Coves, who I think would be lovely to have him on to talk to everyone about this idea. So if you're interested in that, we'd really like to hear from you in the description below. If you're not already following us on Aura Talks, please do so. Please hit that follow button. That'd be really great. Look out for the work that Michael's been doing, because, and you want to mention this really quickly. You've produced a website with 2 interesting tools in it. Is it one?
Yeah, there's a couple of tools on the website, and I'll chuck the links in below.
Yeah, we'll put them in below. Yeah.
But one's a calculator where you can work out how much tax you're really paying.
Yeah. What's your biggest debt in life?
Yeah,
guess what it is, everyone.
If you say to people, what's your biggest expense in life? Most, I'm buying a house. Not even close. Not even close.
No, it's government taxes, isn't it?
It's government. It's the cost of government in all of its forms is where most of your money goes. And that calculator will help you to work that out.
And it's really simple to use as
It's
well.
very, very
by the way.
simple to use. You can use it at the nth level of detail, or you can just do the high level and get it in a pretty accurate snapshot.
Yeah, yeah.
And the other part of that website is a landing page for secession, and there'll be various links on there, and that will grow over time.
Yeah.
It just needed to have a landing page where people could sort of get some sort of a feel for what was going on. And also articles that I've been writing on Substack as I sort of digest what's in the book. And similar to the questions that you've asked today, like, people asking me questions, I think it gets me thinking, well, okay, I'd like to fully articulate a proper answer to that. And the last series is 8 articles, because there's, there are 2 or 3 pages each, on the question of what happens. Let's assume we get secession over the line and we live in a state where people no longer pay income tax, where the state or government is funded by resource rents, corporate taxes, GST, and financial services tax, if you like.
Mm.
And that, again, is a question for Core West and for others to address. But the principal point being that there's strong evidence that there's no need for income tax in Western Australia post-secession. So you have a scenario where every person has far more money in their pocket to spend. And in the current political climate, we've been talking about the housing crisis, you suddenly have a very different equation than what you have today with people with far more money in their pocket. They have much greater capacity to fund the purchase of a home. And so then...
Excuse me, everybody.
So then you have another problem, which is that every time governments have tried to stimulate people's capacity to buy homes, you end up inflating the price of housing.
Mm.
So another part of secession is that we want to restore home ownership as a right of citizenship.
Yeah.
And so you want to take that demand out of the market. So anyway, it's quite complex, hence...
Well, it's one of the debates that's going on.
It's one of the debates that's going on at the
federal
moment about how
platform.
to solve this problem. Canberra can't solve this problem because Canberra can't do what an independent Western Australia can do.
Yeah, it's another key issue that One Nation's
It's a very
talking about.
key issue.
Yeah.
But you can't do away with income tax under the current federal system. Western Australia can.
Well, mate, on that note, I'd like to thank you for being here today.
Been my pleasure.
We're going to do a lot more of this.
Yeah.
We've got other guests we can't wait to have on the podcast. Everyone, thank you for joining us. If you've made it all the way through to the end, you're a very special person. And mostly to me, and I'm sure to Michael as
thanks
well.
Very much.
We really appreciate that. And we look forward to your engagement in the future and hearing from you. And we're going to do live streams and all sorts of things. Also, if anyone's interested, and we will have the ability for you to make a phone call to dial in. We'll advertise that phone number, which I'm getting set up at the moment. So thank you. Thanks very much. And thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Auditox.
Thank you. See ya.